Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to today's video. So I had talked about doing this and I'm finally getting around to recording it, and it is what our Genie Plus strategy was for our recent vacation back in January. So we went to, and if you haven't seen those vlogs, you can go watch them. We had a week-long trip, our annual DVC vacation, and we did 5 days in the parks, Monday through Friday, and we knew we budgeted for Disney Plus because it was the holidays and it was still holiday crowds, and we budgeted for Genie Plus. So what we did is we stacked. My son is a little older, so are we. So we like to sleep in, except I didn't get to sleep in because I had to do the stacking, but I did get to go back to sleep. But we did stacking and we went into the parks late. We're no longer doing rope drop, and rope drop was great when we had Fast Pass. However, with Genie Plus, when we used it the last time, rope dropping just doesn't work. And it's still a great strategy if you're not using Genie Plus, or if you're trying to do maybe 2 different parks. However, if you are going to use Genie Plus, my advice is to stack. And for us, it made the trip much more enjoyable. We kind of took it easy. We didn't take midday breaks. We just kind of enjoyed ourselves, and we got into the parks when we got into the parks, and we knew what we wanted to do. We knew what the priorities were. And because of that, we just had a much better trip. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple key points regarding Genie Plus, and then what our strategy was for stacking. Okay, so for number 1, the most important thing is you need to decide, are you doing Genie Plus or not? The worst thing you can do is decide we're not going to do it. It's too expensive. Get into the park. It's 11 o'clock. You realize it is packed and you're like, oh, I'm going to do Genie Plus now. It's too late. Don't do that. I actually had a friend, I know she doesn't watch my channel. She was there the same time we were. She said it was too expensive. They were a large group. They ended up buying it. Exactly that happened. And well, I think they got on 2 rides, and that was it. And this was in the Magic Kingdom, 2 or 3 rides, and they were not e-ticket rides. So you need to decide, are you doing Genie Plus or not? And if you are, budget for it. We only did 2 sit-down table service dinners this time. That was, we did a lot of quick service. We did a lot of, meals in our room because we did have a kitchen. So we took that money that we would normally spend on a table service for, for Genie Plus. Genie Plus was expensive. The first 2 days, it was $29 per person. Fortunately for us, we only have 1 kid. This is where only having 1 kid is a benefit, because we only had to pay for 3 of us. If you have 4 kids, it's going to be pricey. So again, this is where you have to decide, and you have to decide before 7 a.m. are you doing it? And if you're not going to do it, then you need to rope drop and learn all about rope dropping and how to do that, because especially if it is a busy time. But don't make the mistake of deciding when you get there, when the crowds are busy, when it's really busy, that you're then going to get Genie Plus. The worst thing you can do is get Genie Plus in the park. When you're already there, it's already too late. Don't do it. The second, let's assume you have decided to get Genie Plus. It opens at midnight, so you can go and purchase it after midnight. We had a lot of late nights, so there were a couple times where either I was up past midnight, or I woke up in the middle of the night and then I just went on the app and I bought it. So that way you have it, again, because it's 7 a.m. you just want to kind of go in and make your selections. Again, the price varies. Before, when it first started, I think it was $15. The price now varies. For our week trip, January 2nd and 3rd, which was a Monday and Tuesday, it was $29 per person. Day 3, which was Wednesday, and that's before tax, there is tax. Wednesday was $25 per person. And then Thursday and Friday, it was a bargain because it was only $20 a person. Again, we budgeted for it, and for us, it worked perfectly. So, but if you're going to purchase it, make sure you purchase it either right at midnight or in the middle of the night, but don't wait till 7 a.m. to do that and purchase it. Another thing, what I did is I would set my alarm for 6:45 because you could purchase it, and that way at 7 a.m., when you're ready to make your selections, you're already done and you don't have to worry about, purchasing the Genie Plus. Okay, next thing is to make sure you plan and know what the priority attractions are. I know my son, I know Test Track's a priority. I know Frozen Ever After's a priority. Remy's a priority at Epcot. I know he doesn't like Soarin'. We didn't ride Soarin' this last trip. He doesn't like it, which makes me sad because I love Soarin', but he doesn't like it. He would rather go on Journey into Imagination than Soarin'. So I didn't really have to ask him too much about, Epcot. Magic Kingdom was a little different. Magic Kingdom, it was like, I knew certain attractions are, hard to get for Lightning Lane or for the Genie Plus. So I knew Peter Pan is one that runs really fast. And I also knew Jungle Cruise is one that runs really fast. And so the night before we went to Magic Kingdom, I asked him, okay, do you want to ride Peter Pan? Do you want to ride Jungle Cruise? Surprisingly, he didn't want to ride Jungle Cruise. We never rode it, but he did want to ride Peter Pan. So that was the first one when we went to Magic Kingdom. That was the first one because that one goes fast. So I knew which ones I was going to, so I had that game plan. And then the second thing I would say is have that game plan. And then when you go in at 7 a.m., again, they open up at 7 a.m. That's when you're in the app. So if you are doing a virtual queue, so if it's Cosmic Rewind or eventually Tron, do the virtual queue first. That's going to be really fast. Do that first and then purchase any individual Lightning Lanes before you do anything else. Do those ones that could have more of a time sensitive element, do those first. The next thing is then go in and do your Genie Plus. That's not really going to apply. I think the only day that applied for us was when we were at Epcot for Cosmic Rewind. But the other days that really we didn't take that into consideration. Obviously we know Tron is going to be our virtual queue. So that's something to keep in mind. But then go in as soon as you can. If you do those, go in and then make your first selection. Don't worry about the time. So example, we were going to Magic Kingdom. We knew we weren't getting there till 4 or 5. We ended up getting there, I think, at 5:20. We knew we weren't going there till late. But the selections, you don't get to pick with Genie Plus. It's not like Fast Pass where you got to pick your time. The times are just there. So you're not going to be able to change it. Now, what I did is I think I picked Peter Pan, and then I would go in every hour or so because I knew it was like 9 a.m. It wasn't going to be 5 o'clock for a while. So I just kept kind of refreshing, and then I would get a later time, and then I would refresh again and get a later time, and then I would refresh again and get a later time. But I would do that every hour or so, kind of seeing where it went, and I knew that every 2 hours, which we'll talk about in a second, the times would change drastically. So that's one of the things I did was I just kind of updated the time until I got a time frame that I wanted. And that's what I did. So don't worry about the time that you're selecting. When you first get it, just get it. You can always modify the time. Okay, so after you make your first selection at 7 a.m., then you have the 120-minute rule or the 2-hour rule. You can make a next selection after 2 hours after I believe the park opens. So if the park opens later, it's going to be a little bit later. But the most important thing is that in the app, it will tell you you can make your reservation at this time. So it is going to have a little time where you can say you can make your next reservation at this time. What I did is I recommend going into your alarm and setting an alarm for about a minute or two before that time. That way you can just pull up the app, get in. A lot of times it kept kicking me out, so I had to log back into the app. So that just gives you that time because you don't want to waste any minute. It also gives you a little chance to kind of see what's available and kind of make your next game plan. But hopefully if you're in bed, you can go back to sleep until the next time, and then you're going to make that the next Lightning Lane 2 hours later. But again, it could be a little bit later if the park opens a little bit later, than 9 o'clock. So again, you're going to keep doing that, and depending on when you're going to go to the park. So again, we were going to Magic Kingdom. I'm using Magic Kingdom because we stacked a lot that day. We were going in later, but on the Friday, we went to Epcot, and then we were going to Hollywood Studios in the evening. So we did most of our stacking in Hollywood Studios. We were able to get, I think one I think we got something at Epcot, but everything else we just stacked at Hollywood Studios. So you could do that where you're kind of rope dropping one park in the morning, and then you're going to stack and go later in the evening to another park. That's another way to do it. But again, you're still using that thought of stacking in the evening. Different things, if you've never used Genie Plus, different than Fast Passes, that you could only hold 3 Fast Passes at a time initially. And then once you used those 3, you could only have 1 at a time. That's not the case with Genie Plus and Lightning Lane. You can hold as many as you can make, but you have that 2-hour rule. I think the most I made one day was 6 because we stacked all in the evening, but I have heard of people who stack more in the afternoon and then kind of get them. So you could definitely get more, but it is a little bit more challenging because of that 2-hour rule. Also, with Fast Pass, you couldn't have, times overlap. It was like 6 to 7, and your next one could be 7 to 8, but you couldn't have anything from like 6:45 to 7:45 because it overlapped. That's not the case. We had a lot that overlapped. So what I did strategy-wise was I tried to be in the same area. I booked Splash Mountain, and it's not going to be an issue right now, rest in peace, but Splash Mountain and Big Thunder close together. I backed them, one after the other because they're in the same area and they're out of the way. The same with Tomorrowland. I put, Buzz Lightyear and Space Mountain, again, close together because they're out of the way. So you want to kind of keep that in mind, especially with the larger parks, so that way you're not like crossing over back and forth, which is just going to waste time. Okay, so you're going into the park now. You've stacked, you have 3, 4, maybe even 5 lightning lanes, and you're ready and you start using them. Now, hopefully everything goes according to plan. Now with Space Mountain did go down, and we did get an anytime lightning lane, and that we were able to use with something else. And then when it came back up, I got it again. And then I think it went down again. And that happened also at Epcot. I think with Frozen Ever After, I picked that one up and then it went, I don't remember, but I remember it also happened on our last day when we were at Epcot. So we got like an anytime that I was able to use. And then when I remember when Test Track reopened, we were walking over there. We saw that it was reopened, so we didn't really wait in line. So that was another good thing that we did. But those were things worked out in our favor, but then things didn't work out in our favor. If you watch our first day at Hollywood Studios, it was just a disaster. Everything went down. There was a time when the only half of Tower of Terror was working the whole week that we were there, but Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway went down, Rise of the Resistance went down, I think Smuggler's Run went down, so like everything was going down periodically throughout the day. So it was just a crazy, crazy day. But so we just kind of changed our plans. We worked and we went to Fantasmic that night, and then moved our rides to Friday, and that it worked out really well. But you just kind of have to go with the flow. It's a lot more going with the flow, changing. But again, you should have been changing the times throughout the day. And the worst thing you can do is forget. Don't forget, especially like a ride like Peter Pan. You want to keep checking and just kind of moving it, because there's going to be a time where they're just out. They're gone, you can't get them. So they do occasionally come back on, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second. They do occasionally come back online, but you wanna just get it and change the time so at least you can work with that time, because you don't wanna get to a point where you just can't get it. So when you get into the park, you just kind of keep going, and then you're just gonna have to remember to do those every 2 hours and keep going with that. Now, when you get into the parks, it's obviously later in the day, there's going to be less available. So that's where you just kind of, in Magic Kingdom, it's probably not going to be as big of an issue because there are a lot of rides. But when you get to like Hollywood Studios, we wanted to ride Tower of Terror. It was like 165-minute wait because they only had 2 out of the 4 elevators working, and we weren't waiting in that line. My son really, really wanted to ride it. That wanted to be his like last ride of the trip, and we just couldn't get it. and I saw we hadn't gotten Star Tours. He didn't really want to ride Star Tours, but I was like, okay, we'll just get one for Star Tours. And what I just kept doing was refreshing. And I was just constantly on my phone, refreshing. And, you know, here's a screenshot of me just kind of refreshing and what it looks like. And I'm refreshing. And finally, at one point, one popped up and I just grabbed it. And a lot of times you will try to grab it and it's gone. But that didn't happen this time. I was able to grab it and I was able to change it. So that was something that when, you know, Genie Plus was first launched, you couldn't modify. You couldn't modify the time, you couldn't modify the attraction, you couldn't modify anything. Now you can modify. So again, you can modify the attraction, you can modify the time. So the most important thing is that 120 minutes, you're selecting something because you can go in and change it, but the clock starts the minute you first select that first attraction. So if you modify, you get a different attraction, you modify the time, the clock doesn't reset. The clock just, it goes back to that first time. So again, just get attraction. You can always, you know, modify, change it because you want that clock to start as soon as, you know, close to that 120 minutes as possible. Okay, so that is it for my kind of stacking 101 for Genie Plus and kind of how I used it to my advantage. If you have questions, leave it in the comments below. I might do a second, you know, follow-up to this video. I just kind of wanted to do a basic, kind of the basics for stacking. I really loved it. It allowed us to sleep in, especially at Magic Kingdom. We didn't like leave the park until 1 a.m. So we didn't get back, I think, until almost 2. So it allowed us to kind of have late starts and really enjoy it. It really felt like a more of a vacation. And also, we just didn't feel like we were rushed and it just was more relaxing. And the stacking worked so well at Magic Kingdom that we were able to do a table service and we got that one there. So, you know, stacking, I think this is the way to do it with Genie Plus. I'm sure there's other strategies that people use. And if you have little ones that can't stay up late, I totally get that this might not work for you. But if you are someone like us and you're just someone who likes to sleep in and doesn't go to the park till later, then I think you definitely need Genie Plus, especially if it's going to be a very busy time. We have spring break coming up, you know, the holidays. So if you're going during a busy time, I will say I'm not a fan of Genie Plus. I loved Fast Pass. I love the free Fast Pass. I don't like paying for it. However, it is to me a necessary evil. And when we're spending this much money on a vacation, we want it to make it the most enjoyable experience as possible. And for us, that includes budgeting for Genie Plus. I know that not every family has that. And again, we only have one kid to have to worry about, which really, really, really makes a difference. But that is my basics for how to stack. So just remember, you can modify, make a decision early on and start at 7 a.m. And then you have the 120-minute rule. Make sure you set an alarm. And, you know, you can modify times, you can modify rides. And even if a ride looks like it's gone, it will pop up. Every once in a while it will pop up and you just got to be fast. And the biggest complaint I have about Genie Plus is I was like this on my phone a lot. And, you know, anytime we were just that time, I was just kind of constantly doing it. I don't like that. And I really wish they would revamp this. But you got to work with what you got. And that's, you know, that's what we did. And so it is what it is. With that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye, everyone.